It's probably one of the few venues where a poet can read and actually have an ocean view from the podium. What we can't give them in money, we give them in big heart, and we give them drinks before the reading, dinner after reading. Generally it's Sunny's here in San Clemente. And then we put them up at the Beachcomber, which is the most lovely hotel right on the ocean down here by the pier. We have a number of distinguished readers who've read for us. Marvin Bell, Ralph Angel. We are very excited that Robert Pinsky will be reading for us in 2009, Resurrecting the Favorite Poem Project. Donald Revelle has read for us. Jim McMichael, Michael Ryan. Christian Wyman. Kay Ryan just read for us.
We have Jane Hirschfield coming in November.
Jane Hirschfield. Brenda Hillman. And if her husband would like to give us a call, we'd love to get him. Robert Haas, the new Pulitzer Prize winner.
A lot of really wonderful upcoming poets like Cecilia Woloch, Connie Voisin, Frank Gaspar. I mean, you could go on and on. Before we got started, 10 years before that, I read a poem in the Best of American Poetry by Stephanie Brown about the librarians of San Juan Capistrano vacationing together in Baja. And I thought to myself at the time, this is such a great poem. If I ever move to San Juan Capistrano, I'm going to look that woman up. I actually moved from Chicago to San Juan Capistrano. So I called the library on the phone. I had just completed my MFA in writing at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I wanted to do something to bring poetry to the community where I was living. And Stephanie was at that point in the San Clemente Library, public library, and they referred me over there. And I looked her up on the internet so I knew what she would look like, and I found her behind the reference desk at the San Clemente Library. I went up and asked if she was Stephanie Brown and told her how much I admired her poetry and asked what was happening in poetry in this area and whether or not I could help. And it had been a long-term dream of Stephanie's to host a poetry series in San Clemente, and she knew about this venue. So I met her for breakfast, and I had recently met the mayor of San Clemente, and as we were having breakfast, the mayor of San Clemente stood up in line behind me. As I was standing there with Stephanie, we turned around and talked to her, and she was having breakfast with the staff of the Casa Romantica. So it was really very fortuitous how this worked together, and we spoke with them. In the meantime, my realtor said, oh, I have a friend whose daughter is completing her MFA at UCI, and her name's Lorene Delany-Ullman. I think you'd really like to meet her. So Lorene very graciously invited me to come to a poetry workshop she was having at her house. And I'll let her take the rest of the story.
Well, actually, first we met for lunch in San Juan Capistrano, and I invited Michelle, and so Michelle and I met with Elisa, and Lisa actually immediately started talking about Stephanie and about starting a poetry series, and both Michelle and I were really enthusiastic, but kind of leery, because we didn't really know what it entailed and didn't really kind of understand, where we would have it at that time, not knowing about the Casa. And then I actually had a workshop in which I invited Elisa, and that's where Elisa met Chris Davidson, who's another one of our committee members and founders, who actually grew up in San Clemente, and then also met Patty Saburn, who had just recently returned to Southern California from, I think, Houston, and so they became two more members of the founding committee. And then I eventually invited Colette Atkinson, also from UC Irvine, to join the committee.
And the three of you are all poets, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Every one of the founding members was a poet.
Was a poet, yeah.
Was a poet. We have someone who is not now currently a poet, but we found that we need her too because she has skills that poets generally don't possess. Yes, like organizational type skills.
We ask that they have a book published and that they are willing to read for our stipend, which is low, and that they can manage on the travel funds that we allow them. But our series is primarily to promote people who are dedicated to becoming professional poets.
We kind of started with our basic own networks, our mentors and that kind of thing.
Our families,
that
our
kind of got
friends.
us through the first year and a half, and then we kind of branched out from there in terms of inviting people.
Our series represents a large different number of poets and different schools of thought, different kinds of poetry.
Mhm.
It's not just one kind of poetry. So somebody may come to a reading and say, "Oh, I'm not sure I like that," and then come to the next one and really love it. Or they may come to one and say, "Wow, this is fantastic," and then come to the next one and say, "What happened?" But
Mhm.
it's because we represent a broad spectrum of the poetry world.
We basically have some very regular people that attend from the San Clemente community itself. We have a lot of students, high school students, university students, MFA students, because a lot of us teach, and so we encourage our students to come. We have a lot of other writers in the area. We're trying to contact as many writers in Orange County as possible.
We get a lot of people who in addition to being students are also teachers,
Mhm.
like local high school teachers, but then also we get some retirees too. You think about how much symphony tickets cost, and you think that you can come here and hear the best of American poetry for free once a month.
Every year, we make an anthology CD of recordings of poetry readings. We record each reading, and from that reading, we gather 1 or 2 poems per poet, put them together in an anthology, and we premiere those anthologies on our benefit date in late April every year. So those CDs are for sale at the table with the poet books, but they're also available on our website and through CD Baby. And we were nominated for a spoken word Grammy last year.
We basically do 11 readings. We take the month of December off. We have been, the last 2 years, having one extra reading where we showcase emerging writers from either UC Irvine MFA program or Long Beach State MFA program. And that's actually occurring in June this year.
We decided that there were a number of venues for open mics in Orange County. You have the Ugly Mug series. There are coffee shop readings all over Orange County. And so we decided to make this a venue whereby we would have people who were professional, who were publishing books, as a way for people in the community to see poets who were not really poets in training anymore. They were really the real deal.
Really, our major fundraiser is the benefit in April each year, and that's really where we get most of our funds. I mean, we do have an anonymous donor who supports us and matches us dollar for dollar with what we raise during the year, so that helps tremendously. But he really is the benefactor of the series.
He's a local business owner here in San Clemente, and he was so taken by this kind of warm reception of poetry in San Clemente that he decided he wanted this to be a permanent project in this community. So he gave us a check right after that first reading that pretty much kept us going for a year after that. Casa Romantica was built by Ole Hansen, who was the founder of San Clemente, and his history is all over the walls of this establishment, this house, which it's hard to believe that it's a house, but it's a house. His mother's portrait is over there. He lived here with his mother and his wife. Unfortunately, he lost the house in some kind of gambling problem and didn't own it for very long. And it went into disrepair, and it wasn't until about 6 years ago that they drummed up enough money to actually start refurbishing it again. And so when we came along, it just happened to be at the sort of end of the refurbishment process when they had decided we will make this into a cultural center. So many stars aligned. This dream is mine, but it's shared by many of the committee members. I would like to have Johnny Depp come and read beat poetry here at the Casa Romantica and have an evening where we had wine and cheese and beat poetry. He reads on tape Kerouac, and it's just brilliant. I'm working up the nerve to write the letter now